welcome to The Extra Mile. I'm Linda BOUDREAUX. Our guest today is Kevin Krantz. Kevin is the administrator of the Lafayette Science Museum and Planetarium. And Kevin, it's so good to have you back again.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you for having me on the Extra Mile show. It's great to be here.
Well, it's always fun to have you here. First of all, because you are fun to be with, and secondly, because you're doing just great, wonderful things over there at the museum. So
we're having a blast. What can I say?
Congratulations on all of it. So, you know, we talked last year a little bit about what you were doing, and we're going to talk a lot about 2013 in a minute, but what did happen last year? What all did you all accomplish?
Last year for the museum was a pivotal year because we changed directions midstream. We went from hosting big blockbuster exhibits that drained the account every year to more reasonable, digestible exhibits that were more moderately priced, and so that we could do many more things in the process. So we're actually offering a lot more with the museum now than we were able to do when we were doing just one singular traveling exhibit.
Because that's what we used to do, and I think that's what I thought the museum did, is that it just brought in these national exhibits, and they set up for a while, and then they'd have just like pictures and things in the gallery the rest of the time.
That's right, that's right. And that's a great idea. The only problem is that what you're left with when the exhibit leaves is nothing more that you had before the exhibit arrived.
Right,
so
the pictures in the gallery again.
That's right, the same pictures over and over and over, right. So to avoid doing that, what we've begun doing now is narrowing the scope. We're not going to bring in another traveling exhibit now for a couple of years. We're going to start using our monies to invest in things that will stay with the museum, interactives that will draw in a new audience. So what we began in 2012 was that process. Our first exhibit on our own, as a matter of fact, for this museum, since it's been at this location, was Louisiana 200 years later, you know, an introspective celebration of our state's bicentennial.
So how was that? How did that go?
That went very well. It was straying a little bit from the science perspective, our science mission, but it was something that we felt like we had to do to help celebrate our state's bicentennial.
You only get that once, you know?
That's right, you can't do it next year,
You got to
Linda.
go with the times.
That's right. So we did that. We've been there, done that. It leaves, although, this February. So we have just a magnificent selection of artifact weapons from the mid-1800s all the way to the present time. We have artifacts from Montreal, Canada that relate to surveying and prospecting and the development of Louisiana as we know it now from the time of the purchase when that took place. And we also have Jim Bradshaw, who really contributed to our local slant on the bicentennial. So we've got that leaving in February.
So if you haven't been, you need to get there pronto.
That's right, pronto. Don't miss your one shot.
Yeah, because it's not coming back.
That's right, it's not coming back. Those weapons go back to FN, you know, the Winchester Factory Collection goes back to where it came and no longer will ever be seen by the public. This is the one chance to see them.
So you got a chance here, and if you don't take it, that's okay, because there's more to come.
There's more great things to come. Between February and the end of February and May, we will be preparing for our next exhibit, Leaving Earth, the story of space travel, which is another homegrown exhibit that we're doing. But what better place to look at space travel than the museum? We've got one of the leading experts in everything space in our planetarium director, Dave Hostetter. And he's doing such a phenomenal job of juggling that and helping us eke through the content process of the next exhibit. So we have that will be running through the year's end of 2013. We're also, as I said, going to be filling the museum up. We've applied for a grant with Museums for America, and we're going to fill the museum up with interactives. Give folks just so much stuff to do when they come into our museum that they won't be able to finish it all in one setting. They'll need to come back for another plateful another time. So that's what we're trying to get.
So what has historically been a museum where you walk through and you look at stuff and you say, oh, that's nice. Now we can go in there and it's all touchy-feely and you can kind of begin to interact and interface with what's going on, right?
Going from no touchy-touchy to just really hands-on, learning through doing, a lot of interactives, a lot of audio, video, We're going to be employing QR codes onto our panels, so that way, as immersed as the viewer wants to get, we'll have large type saying what the basic premise of what they're reading is. Then it'll go into a little bit more detail in a smaller type style, and at the very bottom there'll be a QR code for the really in-depth viewer to go in and click on that QR code on their mobile phone app and then go to some really in-depth information about that topic.
So people can really get as immersed as they want.
That's the idea.
They don't have to sink into it, but they can if they
They
so
can
choose.
stop at the first paragraph, or they can spend the next 2 weeks. I mean, it's really going to be up to them.
Is this kind of the direction that museums nationally are going in?
Let's hope so, because that's what the public is demanding. We have a very, very savvy public, and I don't know if it's Lafayette and the surrounding area that's just really on top of their game, but museums of our type that push science and technology are really expected to put forth that, excuse the phrase, the wow factor. People really want to see something that blows them away.
Well, I think we all do, but that's something I've been wondering. How did we become a science museum? I mean, didn't it just be like a natural history museum?
It was a natural history
Why
museum,
did we change it?
and you know, to narrow the scope, natural history can encompass so many things, and I think it's so broad that we were expected to cover so many things that we weren't covering any one thing really well enough. So, you know, to focus the viewpoint, to zoom in a little bit closer and to get a good tight focus on one discipline, you know, and science can go into many different directions. So, I mean, you can take anything and turn it scientific. I mean, look at the nanoscale. We can look at whatever fabric it is that we're wearing, and if it's been made waterproof by virtue of nanoscience, well, there you have it.
That's right. So it really it's broad, but it's still kind of focusing.
It really is. It all depends on how you're looking at it. So it's the vantage point in which we're looking at these things that we've narrowed down.
So who makes these decisions? How does all this come to be?
Well, both the museum director and the exhibits curator, which right now happen to both be me. I do a lot of self-consulting.
I'm thinking you must be talking to yourself in your own head all the time.
That's right, and I'm an excellent listener. Between me and the crickets, I have a lot of trouble to decide which one to listen to, but most of the time.
But you're doing both jobs right now.
Right, multitasking. I do what my Rice Krispies tell me. But then what I do is immediately turn around and talk to our staff, you know, the folks that help make these decisions fly. Because let's face it, if you have these great ideas and you, number one, don't have the backing, or number two, the support and the execution from the staff, well, then it's only left being a great idea with no see-through, follow-through. So then after we've fleshed out all of the ideas, poked little holes in it, and made sure that it's going to fly right and stay straight, then we approach the board and allow them to bring up you know, their thoughts and concerns and questions, and then at least then we know that we've got something that truly will be either, you know, number one, successful, and number two, work.
That you can pull off.
That's right.
So how does this whole thing work? The museum is under Lafayette Consolidated Government.
We're a civil municipality, that's correct.
Okay. But you have a board of directors.
That's right.
How does all that fit?
And well, us being a civil municipality, for instance, the benefits are, as we are a part of the community government, we literally reach out to the community in ways that they ask us to. We aren't private. We can't just make up our own minds. We seek the advice of our citizens, our visitors, and so we do work for the community. But the fact is that all admission, everything that comes into the museum through our front desk, or room rentals or anything, goes back into the general fund of LCG. That's a good thing. We help support our community government by being a part of the community.
And so when you go to the museum, your admission goes right back to LCG?
Into the city to help provide for the staffing and for, I mean, they literally keep us there and keep us doing what it is that we do. So that's why it's very important. They see us as an educational tool, and that's exactly what we bill ourselves as. And we're entertainment and everything else, but first and foremost, we're about education. You know, so the other side of that civil municipality is our 501c3 partner, our foundation, and our board. And what they do is they raise funds for the exhibits to go back into the educational content, to put back into, to provide seed money, let's say, for next year's Bach Lunch or Museum Fear or whatever it is that we're offering and making money, we put a small portion back into developing and making that better, shoring up the ship, making sure, putting Band-Aids on the holes, doing it.
You got to have your sales set.
And then putting back into the museum this year. We're currently talking about how those funds that were raised last year will be implemented, and we're literally talking about that now.
As we speak.
That's right.
Because it's January, and that's when you do those kinds of things. So when you're deciding what an exhibit's going to be, does your board or does community development, do any of those people have any say-so, or is it really just kind of something?
Well, that is such a great question. And of course, we listen to any ideas and we take any suggestions, but when it comes down to it, the decision is usually made from within, and permission is usually asked for and granted by the city and the board.
So how do you decide? I mean, there's a universe of stuff you could do. I mean, seriously, it's like, how do you even begin to decide what your next exhibit is going to be?
Well, for instance, Louisiana 200 years later, we had a calling from City Hall, and we answered that calling as well as we could, and we had a great time putting on the exhibit. And
you did a great job.
And well, thank you. And we really feel like it served its purpose. With the following exhibit, which will be an exhibit on space travel, Leaving Earth, the Story of Space Travel is going to be the name of this next exhibit that opens up in May of this year. Well, fundamentally, the reason why we're doing this is because, first off, there's never been an exhibit in this museum, in the history of this museum, on space travel. With the upgrade, the digital upgrade of our planetarium, and the relaunching, in essence, of our museum, we wanted to come forth and come out the chute with a cohesive message. And that message for our big launch, so to speak, will be all about space.
And this year really is your big launch year.
It really is.
For the science piece of it.
It really is. For the science portion of our museum, you know, in the past we've had a business model that was really great, brought in a lot of folks, but what we're looking to do is we're looking to see the same folks over and over and over. We want to see return visitors, and the way to do that is to give them something to come back to time and time again. We owe it to our members too.
Give me my wow.
That's right. Where's the wow?
Yeah.
You know, you can, and I've said this over and over, you know, when it comes to just panels and looking and reading, you can do that online. You can go on the internet and just about look at and read anything your heart desires, for better or worse. When it comes to a museum, you don't want to necessarily just go in there and look at stuff. In my mind, you want to experience and learn about it through just about immersing yourself as far as you can go into it, if it is that's what you want to do.
And that's why you're changing the way that you do business.
That is exactly why we're changing the model. So, you know, last year was the transitional piece where we just kind of pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps, changed directions. You know, when you have a big ship, it takes a long time to turn that baby around.
It's a big turning circumference.
It's a big turn you have to make.
Yeah.
That's right. Watch out for icebergs. So that's what we're doing right now. And it will literally take us about 3 more years to really get a full head of steam and be going in the direction that we want to go. But by taking our museum and turning it into something that folks want to just come back to, something that engages them, entertains them, gives them a laugh or two. For instance, one of the plans for October, which is our big fundraising year, is there's, if you keep up with gaming to any extent, Xbox 360 put out a product called the Kinect. Well, there's been a lot of third-party development where the Kinect is literally a camera with sensors that picks up the way that you move. You can dance to it, you can play games with it, and it literally mimics what it is that you do. Well, as folks walk by our museum, they'll be picked up by a large screen which will pick up their motions, and let's just say leading up to Zombie Walk, as they walk by and notice that something's walking by at the same time, they turn and look at the screen. It will be them and as their zombie avatar looking back at themselves, and of course they'll want to do this kind of stuff to it, and you want to engage them and make them want to go into the museum and see more.
So this will be something that, as I'm walking down Jefferson Street, just as a pedestrian, I might walk into myself?
That you will literally walk past your zombie avatar, and so we want to, you know, I think of it as a good, the sport of fishing. You know, you can throw a hook out there, but unless you bait it, You're not going to catch
And you're going to bait it with your own self.
I'm going to bait it to the hilt. Oh, yeah, it's going to be obnoxious.
I want to talk about Museum of Fear because I'm afraid to go to it. I was
You
saying
should be.
earlier,
You really should
I
be
am.
afraid.
I'm asking, so you know, folks, I'm asking him to do a Museum of Fear light for people like me, and he told me, what did you tell me?
That's right, yeah. I will give you the behind-the-scenes tour, and we will be as gentle with you as we possibly can.
But the reality is that he will not do a Museum of Fear light. He'll just let me have a kind of other view.
We cannot, with any integrity, go forward with the Museum of Fear Light. Now, the Children's Museum, one of our good friends, they do the Museum of Fear Light, but it's strictly geared towards the kids, and you know they give you a little bubble gum and the bobbing for apples, and right. You might want to stick with that, Linda.
I think
that might serve you well.
I might have to.
You know, with the set design and the props and the, you know, it's pretty grisly.
So tell us about Museum of Fear, because that's also your brainchild. I mean,
it is, and of course
sometimes I think living in your head must be.
It's a really scary place to be. Just ask my wife. She's, you know, she has several nicknames for me. None of them are flattering, but I take them all as a compliment because that only goes to show how sick and demented you have to be to come up with this stuff. Okay. Well, Museum of Fear, after 2008, we had a fundraiser that, you know, as many, you know, nonprofits know, you know, you win some, you lose some, and we had a really tough year in fundraising 2008. You know, we had the turn of the market, and we just needed some new ideas. So we thought long and hard about what could be done to take advantage of the audience that was out there on Jefferson Street downtown on any given weekend, besides being a bar or a restaurant. So we came up with, myself and the board president at the time, came up with a haunted house. So we were going to do a haunted house, and I said, yeah, I want to be involved in it. I want to do it. You know, of course, they're going, yeah, right, he wants to do it. They've been involved with boards before, and you get a lot of great people going, yeah, I want to do this, but then when it comes down to it, right,
exactly,
okay, who's going to, well, so the museum and the staff and the board really stepped up that first year, and that was in 2009. And for some reason, we have chased our tail. We have chased 2009 since. That was our biggest year.
Oh, really? I would have thought that last year would have been big, because last year was like the scariest year.
But now, 2009, we were open 16 nights.
Okay, that's a lot.
Oh, it's an awful lot.
That's a lot.
Okay. 2009, this last year for 2012, we were open 8 nights and 32 hours.
Okay.
You know, so we brought in right at 6,000 people.
You're moving a lot of people through there.
In that 32 hours.
You're moving a lot of people. Can you handle more?
Oh, yeah.
Can you? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially now that we are really, really getting good. You know, I say that I use every shred of experience that I've ever taken. I used to run Piccadilly cafeterias. And, you know, part of a Piccadilly cafeteria, part of the mantra is line speed. You know, I used to have dreams about standing up on the counter and thinking I was herding cattle, for Pete's sakes, you know, you know, the line speed is 72 people every 5 minutes with Piccadilly.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
There's a formula. You got to meet that right. 72 people in 5 minutes. That's right. That's the minimum line speed. When you're jamming them out, you got to line out the door. Right. So part of that mentality goes into the haunted house business, because you don't want to be changing out your cornbread when you've got a line of people out the door. You want that cornbread out on the line. Same thing goes with the haunted house. Right, you don't want to put in a fake elevator that takes a minute and a half to go one way and come back the next when you've got a line of people.
You got to move it, yeah.
You've got to be able to, in every aspect of the set, you have to be able to push. The rotor-rooter theory, you got to flush them out, push them through, get them going. And so that's what we do. That's how we operate, and that's how we can take more people, because every year we get a little bit more savvy in how we move people through and how we entertain them while they're in the line queue.
Well, that's really that's important. But I want to talk about the actual haunted house before we get into how you entertain them in the line. But so, how long does it take to go through the haunted house?
It takes about 15 minutes.
And people come out of it a lot different than they went in it.
People come out of it changed. Sometimes they've had to change their clothes. There depends. I mean, it really is scary. And we have some folks who really have a hoot and have a blast, and we have some people who are hauled out in the fetal position. I mean, it really depends on...
So let me ask you this. Are there people really that want to be that scared?
Yes. People love being scared. If that weren't the case, then you wouldn't have millions of dollars being poured into 3D horror movies. I mean, and what's more 3D than being there?
I mean, that is not 3D, honey. That is real.
That's
is it.
The real
that is
McCoy.
it. You're right there.
We actually put the folks in a situation where they feel like they're there. We have a ground-hugging fog that we've developed, fog machines, that as you're walking through this fog, it's not a chemical fog, it's literally ionized water. Come on, folks, Science Museum.
You got to be able to do something.
So, you know, we've got this great ground-hugging fog, we've got the theatrical lights, we even use smells. We have scent dispensers that we use throughout the show to heighten the effect. So, yeah, and with the actors, and the actors are ruthless. You know, there was the debate in the beginning, well, should you take it easy on people bring their kids in, scare the kids or not? And from the beginning, it's like, if folks are going to bring their kids in there, they're going to be sleeping with them for the next 6 weeks, because I will haunt their dreams. And we will make it as scary as we possibly can, because that's what it is that we're doing. There was only one time, and you know, I had to eat my words. There was one time when I was in the haunt, I was in the scare, I was playing the seance medium, and I had this, you know, 4 of the oldest people that I think I've ever seen walk in, and I'm just sitting there like stumbling over words, because I'm going, I'm going to kill these poor old people. I'm going to be responsible for taking them out. And of course, they made it through better than most of the young folks do. But I had that second guess, and I was going, okay, all right, am I going to have to really do this? So, yeah, you know, there's sometimes when you go, boy, should I? But then you have to. You owe it to the entertainment value. You owe it to the project.
Well, and you know, it's like you said, that's what people want. And because it's got this reputation now of being truly terrifying, you really can't, like you said earlier, you can't water it down. Do you intend to continue to beef it up, or do you think you have maxed out?
I'm so glad you asked that. This year, you know, we have a rule, a steadfast rule, that we can't touch our visitors. Well, our visitors are going to now make the choice at the very end on whether or not they want to be manhandled. They will be able to go into a separate portion where they will be slammed about and abused just a little bit more than they already have been. And believe me, there will be people that will just love it and want to be the first ones to go through.
You discovered that when you did your zombie walk too, huh? People just really
Zombie walk was just so great, because
what is zombie walk?
Zombie walk celebrates. Zombie walk is a zombie parade that celebrates the final installment of Museum of Fear. This last year was our first annual zombie walk, and it took place the last Saturday of the month, which coincided with our last Museum of Fear installment. And so what basically happens is, since we just have so many doggone zombies in our show, we thought it would be great, and this is done in a lot of big cities where folks dress up as a zombie and they parade themselves around in celebration of some of the great zombie hordes from the movies past, you know, the zombie stomps from all of your favorite zombie movies, and they go out and they replicate that. You know, we did 1/3 of a mile this last year, and everybody agreed it wasn't nearly enough. So we met this year at Centre International, right there at the stony statue of General Mouton, and walked down, stone-faced statue, and we walked down Jefferson, past the museum, and ended up in Parc Sans Souci. Well, this year we're going to start and end in Parc Sans Souci, but we're going to make a much bigger route this year. It's going to be a big old party to begin with and to end it.
So you had 400 people?
We had 400 people for our first go-round this year, which was so magnificent. You know, we had 300 or so say they were going to be there on Facebook. By the way, anybody who wants to catch up on the latest and the greatest and hear the minute by minute, they can go to our Facebook page at Lafayette Science Museum on Facebook to kind of give the behind the scenes on what it is that we do. But we knew that by the invitations that we had sent out and the event that there were about 300 or so people that said they would be there, but the turnout was much greater because of course we went above and beyond just Facebook. We went on television and did just about everything that we could.
And everybody knows somebody, people talk to each other, they say, let's get a group together.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
and it really turned out well. This year is just going to be so much better. And what's great is it's an event within an event.
Yeah, that's very
cool. And it
cool.
allows us to expand upon the Museum of Fear franchise.
So you have found, I think, a gold mine in this fundraiser.
It's so wonderful, and it's a niche product. There's really nothing like it in town. And at this point, unless somebody would pour millions of dollars into it, it would be hard to replicate.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's yours. You know, I mean, y'all have developed it, and it has now, it's becoming kind of iconic in our community.
Well, that's great. I love the idea. We've got
like,
10,000 square feet dedicated to this thing, and it's a gold mine. It's becoming an icon. It's becoming a landmark.
It is.
And it's something that we hope will be around for a long time. BOUDREAUX Lunch is celebrating its 25th year.
Well, that was my perfect segue in the last couple of minutes that we have. I mean, we're going to kind of go to a whole different kind of tempo. You have BOUDREAUX Lunch.
That's right. And BOUDREAUX Lunch, for those who don't know, is our weekly free concert that takes place in Parc Sans Souci. In Parc International, one time a year, we do our little BOUDREAUX Lunch to coincide with Festival International.
Right.
But most of the other times, it's in Parc Sans Souci. We have great local food vendors who come out there and sell their wares. And I mean, it's just such a great party environment. Every Friday in spring and in fall, we do this, and it is a great local concert.
And again, what you're doing, and local is where I was going with that, but you really do showcase local musicians.
That's right.
Except during Festival International. Well, even during Festival International, usually you have somebody local playing, don't you?
That's right.
I'm thinking about it. Bring your own lawn chair.
We've been so lucky to have the support of the local musicians who come in, and I mean, they play for a lower rate to where we can afford it, and it's a fundraiser. They help us out, the restaurants help us out, so we do as much in turn to try and promote them and make them feel like they're a part of something bigger.
So all of it is working.
It's reciprocal, that's right.
Yeah, it is. Kevin, we're out of time, but thank you so much for being back with us
always
again.
A pleasure, Linda. It's always a pleasure.
It's been great. Keep up the good work. I'm excited about all that you're doing. Again, we've been talking to Kevin Krantz. He is with the, I still want to call it the Natural History Museum, but it is now the Lafayette Science Museum and Planetarium. Kevin, thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
And thank you for watching The Extra Mile.